Welcome back, adventurers, to Let's Play Steins Gate Zero. In the last episode, Suzuha was exceptionally grumpy with her father, Daru Hashida, otherwise known as the super hacker and favorite right arm, Daru, otherwise known as Hack. After a bit of a tongue lashing from his future daughter, Daru did try to smooth things over between the two of them, and of course the conversation inevitably turned to the strange case of not Horin Kiyoma, but Rentaro Okabe, who is still refusing to go back to July 28th and attempt to rescue Kurisu Makase from certain death, because he knows all too well the tragedy of world-line convergence. And even though we saved her once, we may not be able to save her again. Unfortunately, in the middle of the conversation, we heard the sound of high heels coming up the stairs and some rather odd humming. And I think I know who that person might be. And it's not good news for either Daru or Suzuha. Their eyes met. Just the sound was enough to tell them who it was. Yeah, it's very important that Suzuha not be seen. Suzuha moved fast, maybe even faster than when she knocked her father to the ground. She quickly and silently jumped behind the curtain that separated the lab's development room from the rest of it. Just as she hid beneath the desk, there was a knock at the door. Suzuha knew that voice, of course. It was her mother. Her future mother. She could tell from the noises he was making that her dad was panicking. There was another knock. So it appears that Yuki Amane has arrived here first. Daru went to open the door. Suzuha took a deep breath and concentrated her mind. She remembered the time she spent with three days and 3 nights on a battlefield with no food and nothing to drink, constantly aiming her rifle at the target. She erased any trace of her presence that could give her away. Looks like we're in Metal Gear Suzuha mode. Her breathing started to become shallow. Dad, don't screw this up, okay? I think your prayers will fall on deaf ears. Looks like Yuki's wanting to catch up with Mayuri again, probably about the Kamima and the Christmas party. But anyway, allow me to formally introduce you all, one and all, to Suzuha Mane's future parents, Daru Hashida and Yuki Amane. Of course, it goes without saying, if without either of these two, Suzuha Mane wouldn't even exist. And if they don't get together, then a time paradox will happen, and Suzuha Mane will basically end up going the way of, will end up suffering the same fate Marty McFly almost did in Back to the Future 1. Daru came back into the room with a girl. That's right, you were planning on cooking a quiche. She could hear plastic bags rustling. She must have brought the ingredients.
Mayushi 来てないんだよね。
Looks like Mayuri's still out and about in Akihabara.
そうですか。ちょっと来るの早かったかな。
It's probably good you're here. Yuki Amane. Just as the name Amane suggested, she was Suzuha's mother, future mother. In other words, Daru and Yuki were supposed to get married.
まあ、約束があるならそのうち来るんじゃないかな。
待っていてもいいですか？
This is probably around the same time that Mayuri is catching up with Rintaro and Ferris.
もちろん、ここで料理もするんでしょ。
And as we heard from Mayushi in the previous episode, Yuki actually does seem to be a good cook.
はい、橋田さんもぜひ味見してくださいね。
To be honest, it's probably better than the trio of, I think Ruko is a fairly decent cook, but Mayuri and Kurusu, on the other hand, were not as well versed in the cooking department.
Mayushi のはあんまり食べたくないよ。
I do know whose cooking Daru wants to eat, unfortunately, and sadly it's not Mayuri's or even Yuki's. Daru, as the overzealous otaku that he is, only wants to eat the home cooking of Ferris Nyan Nyan
大丈
of
夫で
May
すよ。
Queen.
まゆりちゃん、すごく上達してるんですから。
Yeah, a lot better than the chemical X food that she and Kurisu made in the past. The only silver lining is that that particular experience happened only on the Alpha World lines, which is one thing I'm glad I'm not regretting is gone. Itaru was clearly nervous. As far as Suzuha knew, the only girl he acted that way around was Yuki Amane. This could very well be an effect of world line convergence, methinks. Suzuha and Mayuri were practically family, and he got along fine with big sis Rumi, Ferris Nyan Nyan, who worked at the maid cafe next door. So it wasn't that he didn't know how to act around girls, and given the fact that he's spends most of his computer time on a Eroji, that's certainly true. But for some reason he always acted differently whenever she was around. Despite being a self-proclaimed wizard class super hacker whose motto is death to normies, Daru seems to actually have genuine feelings towards Yuki Amane. Whether he acts on those feelings or not is a different matter entirely. But again, I think that where Suzuha Amane might fail, worldline convergence might actually step in. She told him that Yuki would be his wife someday. That could also have a profound effect. It was too late to do anything about it now, but maybe that was a mistake, she thought. Interestingly enough, in the Alpha World line, Suzuha didn't actually know who her mother was. Or at the very least, she probably kept Yuki's identity secret from Daru at the time. Of course, this being the Beta World line, things have changed.
今日は妹さんはお留守ですか？
I didn't think you ever had a sister, oh wait, you're talking about Suzuha. Oh, this just goes from bad to worse.
そうですか。
Well, I suppose Daru needed a quick and easy cover story for Suzuha, but for Suzuha and Yuki to interact in the first place is, well, hell, even for Suzuha to interact with Daru in the first place could jeopardize her own existence. But Suzuha and Yuki, things can only get worse. Daru's sister was none other than Suzuha herself. At around the same time Suzuha had started spending all her time in the lab, Yuki had become friends with Mayuri and Daru and began visiting more frequently after the August Komima, which meant that avoiding her was almost impossible, and so she was forced to tell Yuki that she was Daru's little sister. But still, she wanted to keep contact to a minimum in order to keep Yuki from finding out somehow. That's why she was hiding. Of course, you kind of gave yourself a bit of a handicap by telling Yuki that you were Daru's little sister. That's certainly not going to be conspicuous in the slightest. That was sarcasm, by the way.
そうそう、どうですこの服。この前買ったんですけど。
If I had to be perfectly honest, it actually suits her cheerful demeanor. I certainly like the little beret on her head. Yuki showed no signs of noticing Suzuha. She was twirling around the center of the room, as if she was at a fashion show or a cosplay. Yuki was a cosplayer and wanted as many people to see her as possible. Sorry, I didn't read that right. Yuki was a cosplayer and wanted as many people as possible to see her dressed up. Mayuri had told Suzuha that once before. In fact, Yuki and Mayuri spend a lot of time complimenting each other's outfits. Mayuri usually makes the costumes. She rarely wears them.
いいよ、すごくいい。
And I actually have to agree with Daru on this one. It actually looks nice in a kind of wholesome sort of way.
本当ですか？
うわ、天使来たこれって感じ。
Of course, Daru gives his usual enthusiasm.
ありがとうございます。
Or shows his usual enthusiasm, I should say, not gives it.
橋田さんもおしゃれしましょうよ。ちょっとだけ痩せれば結構素敵だと思うな。
The comparison between Yuki Amane and her Alpha World Line daughter, is still there. Daru is not amused, although he's probably a little bit embarrassed at this point.
私本気ですよ。
おお。
Suzuha is not liking this for personal reasons. Daru Hashida and Yuki Amane. As she listened to their awkward conversation, Suzuha remembered the last time she said goodbye to her dad. That probably was in 2036. 13th of August 2036, 7:46 p.m. And the sound of gunfire.
治安部隊が万世橋まで来てる。
Yeah, it's kind of an oxymoron to say that they're peacekeeping squads when they're shooting guns, but in many cases these kind of squads believe that having firearms is peacekeeping, and it looks like they've reached Mansebashi. Well, one of the bridges on the south side of Akihabara that crosses the Kanada River. The original Matsubashi was built in a different spot. When new Matsubashi Bridge was built in its current location, the old bridge became known as Old Matsubashi until it was taken down altogether in 1906. The current bridge only came into its current arc shape after several rebuildings, including one after the Great Kanto earthquake. And we don't actually know which nation these so-called peacekeeping squads belong to. And there is Daru from the future trying to spread false information to try and deceive the enemy. Unfortunately, it didn't work. It looks like this is the moment where Suzuha Mane goes back in time to the year 2010. I was wrong. They're not going into the time machine. They're going into some sort of secret tunnel. And it seems that Mayuri of the future is also here, which is surprising. And that begs the question, if Mayuri is here with Daru and Suzuha, where then is Rintaro? Unless of course, Worldline Convergence has already claimed his life in the year 2025, because on the Alpha and Beta world lines, that is when that is basically the death date of Rintaro Okabe. So he has probably been killed in action. The room was almost totally empty and covered from top to bottom in soundproofing materials. There's Suzuha Mane dressed in her military camo uniform. There's Itaru Hashida of the future, still as overweight, but a little bit more serious than usual, although his personality hasn't really changed that much according to Suzuha. There of course is future Mayushi, and there's also a fourth person, a little girl with long flowing red hair and what appears to be bluish grey eyes. She looks similar to somebody that we've seen before, but we don't know who that girl is, but she's clearly with Mayuri. Not only were there no windows, there wasn't even a door to the hallway. I'm guessing this large object in the just off the screen here is the time machine. The building they were in was once a symbol of old Akihabara, before it was almost entirely destroyed by an air raid during the last days of the Third World War. Only a few people knew about the secret room inside of it. The biggest reason was its secret. The silhouette of what looked like a satellite sitting in the corner, but it is not a satellite. Indeed it is. So that's the little girl's name, Kagari. That's a rather nice name. Suzuha spoke to the little girl clutching Mayuri's hand. Most of the children in this era had skin inflammation somewhere on their body, or from the radioactive rain, but apparently Kagari didn't. Her name was Kagari Shina. Her registration form said that she was 10 years old, but no one knew if that was true. She was an orphan who lost her parents in the Tokyo air raid when she was a baby, and no one even knew her birthday. I was gonna say, given the she has Mayuri's last name, which is Shina. It turns out that Mayuri adopted her since her parents were killed. The name Kagari had been given to her by Mayuri, who was working at the child welfare center that had taken her in. So she doesn't even know, we don't even know who her actual name is, so we're just gonna call her Kagari for the time being. This is certainly an interesting twist from the other world lines. She took it from the word Kagaribi. Kagaribi, I'm just gonna pronounce it like that, meaning bonfire, in the hope that she could be a light even in these dark days. It had been 4 years since Mayuri had adopted her, and the name on the registration form, her name on the registration form had become Kagari Shina. Kagari. And apparently Kagari is calling Mayuri, she thinks of Mayuri as her mother. Even in the dark future of 2036, Mayuri is still an innocent soul. Suzuha motioned for the Shinas to step back and put her right hand and eye up to the time machine sensor. The biometrics check cleared and the hatch slid open. Biometrics are the use of fingerprints, voice recognition, vein and iris scanning, etc. instead of a password. Basically a biological security check. Although it's not entirely foolproof. She went inside and fastened herself into the seat.
これほど長時間の有人ジャンプは初めてだが、技術的には全く問題ない。これまでのテストジャンプ通りやればいいからな。
Fortunately, in this time, Daru has had the opportunity to refine the time machine, unlike in the Alpha World line where it was hastily reverse engineered from CERN technology. In that particular world line, Daru was killed before the time machine could be fully completed, so that time machine could only go back into the past, but not forward into the future. This time machine, however, can actually go into the past and the future, which is a good thing for Beta Suzuha. Suzuha began to flip switches, working her way through the startup procedure. She'd practiced it hundreds of times in preparation for this day. The faint rumble from the machine began to get louder. Probably should have invented some shades, because this thing can get pretty blinding.
データによれば、昔のラジカンはちょうどこの場所が屋上になってる。ただし、高さが1メートルほどずれてるからな。着地するときに衝撃があると思う。
Well, that's actually good to know. Because remember that the time machine is stationary, it can move through time, but not physically through space, so it can't actually move like an actual conventional vehicle. But apparently this is the used to be the roof of the radio building, which explains why it appears.
了解。
Of course, in the Alpha World line, there was, due to the faulty technology, there was a bit of a slight hiccup with the with the time translation, and as a result, the time machine ended up in the roof of the radio building on the 8th floor instead of actually on the roof itself. But there should be no problems with this time machine. The time machine can move through time but not space. I just explained that. To arrive at the radio building more than 60 years in the past, she needed to launch from right here. Ah, that's right. Before she arrived in 2010, she had to jump back to 1975, most likely to acquire the IBM technology that was lost in World War III, though not necessarily to fight against CERN this time. And then she, for some reason, she jumped forward in to the year 2000, and I think I have a slight idea as to why she did that.
大丈夫だよ。私は父さんのマシンを信じてるから。
I think your daughter is certainly a well-trained soldier as well. Her words must have meant a lot to him, because he stuck out his lips towards her. She squished them back with her hand.
気持ち悪い。
Yeah, typical Daru.
悲しいな。鈴葉は父さんが嫌いかい。
You don't have to answer that,
父さんがや
Suzuha.
るとなんか下心があるみたいだから。
いくらなんでも娘相手に下心なんてねえよ。
最近母さんに似てきたハスハスとか言ってたのはどこの誰？
Even in the far future, Daru is a perverted gentleman. Her mother wasn't here. She'd become a victim of the war, brutally killed by the peacekeeping squads. So that was the life of Yuki Amane.
冗談を真に受けないでくれたまえ。
It's really hard to tell the difference with you, Daru.
なんだ、冗談だったの？
Suzuha's voice kind of sounded disappointed. She set her destination for August 13th, 1975. Her first mission was there.
これでよし。それじゃあ父さん、マヨ姉さん。
She was about to say her goodbyes. But then... it looks like the peacekeeping squads have already found this place.
屋上からだ。突入してくるぞ。
くそ、思ったより早い。
Looks like we're living on borrowed time now. Suzuha drew her gun from her holster. She was about to get out of the time machine, but her dad stopped her.
ダメだ。さっさと飛べ。
でも父さんたちが。
俺たちのことはいい。早く行け、鈴葉。
Doesn't look like you can help them now, Suzuha.
だって。
マヤシ、係ちゃんを。このマシンにはもう一人乗れる。
Yeah, that's right. This time machine can fit 2 people instead of just 1 person. Mayuri and Suzuha's father picked up the stunned Kaguri and stuffed her into the time machine.
すずちゃん、係をお願い。わかった。
If Suzuha's mission succeeded, the world line would be rebuilt, and it was likely that the present Kaguri would cease to exist. It might have been pointless to send her. But even so, a mother wants her child to live. That's how Suzuha's mother was too.
ママ。
But Kaguri doesn't want to leave Mayuri's side. Kaguri finally seemed to understand what was going on. She called out to her mother. Well, it's certainly better than the alternative.
かがりちゃん、すずちゃんが一緒だからね。ダメ、ママも一緒じゃなきゃダメ。過去へ行けば昔のママがいるよ。今よりずーっと若くて、かがりちゃんびっくりするだろうな。
Mayuri handed Kaguri a tiny keychain. It looked old. It may have been a brightly coloured green. Sorry, why is there an A there? Again, I have to facepalm at the localization, it keeps tripping me up. It may have been brightly coloured green once, but now it was completely faded.
ママがずっと大切にしてきたウーパのキーホルダーだよ。かがりちゃんにあげる。大事にしてね。
Even in the future, Mayuri still loves Upas. The mascot character of the WWIII Kakuru anime. A dog-like virtual pet with an egg-shaped cylindrical body and short stubby arms and legs. Comes in many different colors. It can't talk, but it can communicate by crying Oopa or Oopa. So basically consider it Steins Gate's very own Pokemon, basically. Once it was pressed firmly into Kagari's hand, she stepped back. Mayuri was smiling but weeping at the same time. But Kaguri wants to remain here with Mayuri, as she is the only mother that Kaguri has ever known. Unfortunately, staying here could very well mean certain death. This is the first time we've seen a stern side to Mayuri, which is very uncharacteristic of her. She's normally good-natured. Kaguri fell silent immediately. Even Suzuha had never heard Mayuri use that tone of voice. That's how harshly she scolded her daughter. But Kaguri doesn't want to leave Mayuri behind, which is entirely understandable. Kaguri was quietly weeping and moving. This time, the hatch really did begin to close. The inside of the machine and the outside of it. The two worlds were about to be completely cut off from one another. Whether Suzuha's mission was successful or not, she would probably never see any of them again. And by the way, I tried to find the key that turned off the text. I believe it was Control or Shift in the original Steins Gate, or maybe it wasn't, but it's been changed to Backspace. And the time machine actually seems quite different compared to the Alpha timeline's time machine. Tell Rintaro that Steins Gate really exists. So, even now, Rintaro, Daru, and Mayuri have found the world line known as Steins Gate. But finding it is one thing, reaching it is something else. And then the door was sealed shut, and Mayuri and Daru's voices disappeared along with the chaos outside.
父さん大好き
She whispered towards the door, now sealed shut.
行くよかがり過去へ
She booted up the time machine. And back they went to 1975.
芦田さん掃除機はどこ
Meanwhile, back in the present, Yuki is apparently looking for a vacuum, possibly to clean the interior of the future gadget laboratory in preparation for the upcoming collaboration with Mayushi and friends. But that's it for this episode of Let's Play Steins Gate Zero. When we return, well, let's just hope that Suzuha can remain hidden from her future mother for a little bit longer, unless Worldline Convergence decides to intervene. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.